Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to our Course in Miracles text study. My name is Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with, say hi, Sonia.
Hi.
And this is my friend Connie.
Hello.
And Teresa.
Hello.
Hello. So we left off, we are on chapter 1 of the text. We're still on the meaning of miracles, and we are in section 6, the illusion of needs. Okay, so let's just start here. Number 1, you who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. No learning is acquired by anyone unless he wants to learn it and believes in some way that he needs it. While lack does not exist in the creation of God, it is very apparent in what you have made. It is, in fact, the essential difference between them. Lack implies that you would be better off in a state somehow different from the one you are in. Until the quote unquote separation, which is the meaning of the quote unquote fall, nothing was lacking. There were no needs at all. Needs arise only when you deprive yourself. You act according to the particular order of needs you establish. This, in turn, depends on your perception of what you are. Okay, so let's just take line by line on this one because it's there's a lot in there. Okay, so for the first one, you who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. Okay, so that's pretty clear. Is that not clear? Okay, if we want peace, because if we don't forgive, if we hold a grievance, if we hold anything against anyone, there's conflict. And we're also going to feel separate in some way from that person. Or from whatever situation we have a hard time, forgiving, whatever. And so we're not, the mind keeps thinking about it. So it doesn't have it can't seem to, what's the word? Find, I want to say completion, but it's almost like resolution. It's almost like there's no resolution because I have a problem with you. And that's always going to be there until I forgive. And so there's always going to be this sense of stress anytime, your name comes up or someone talks about you or I think about it, and that stress comes right back up. And therefore, forgiveness is inner peace. And by the way, that is also healing. So they go hand in hand there. Okay, anything there for you guys?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, number 2, no learning is acquired by anyone unless he wants to learn it and believes in some way that he needs it. And the Course talks a lot about learning because it says that we have taught ourselves basically what is not true. And now we have to unlearn it. But to unlearn it, we have to be willing to recognize that, gosh, I don't know everything. And I must not know everything because things don't go, I'm not happy, basically. I'm not happy. Things don't go well for me. You know, I'm doing my best, what I think is my best. I'm trying really hard, but I don't get what I want. So there's something wrong. I'm sensing there's something wrong here. But until I am open and recognize that, um, yeah, that I need help, basically, that I need to learn something that I haven't learned, I'm not going to learn it. Because if I'm perfectly fine, so sometimes that's why the Course says that suffering is a necessary expedient. Because, sometimes, if our life is so, it's not great, but it's not awful, we tend to just kind of coast along and not really even recognize how unhappy we are. And therefore we would never go and really dig inside to see, well, what's going on here. I should be happy, but I'm not. So the learning comes when we believe that we need it. So we have to first see that there is something, let's see, there has to be another way. We have to kind of get to that place where we are open to learning that what we have learned is not true. So we can let it go. And therefore, want the truth, seek for the truth. And the Course talks about the happy learner. And the Course is really, really difficult if we're not a happy learner, because there's going to be a lot of resistance, because it's turning upside down everything that we have taught ourselves. And if we're still really attached to what we taught ourselves, it's really hard to let it go. Okay, so let's see. Number 3, while lack does not exist in the creation of God, it is very apparent in what you have made. Okay, so what is it talking about there?
Well, it's talking about all of our projections and illusions, our wants, are all lacks. I mean, just about everything that we see here is a lack because it's not eternal.
Yes. So, I mean, when you think about something that you want right off the bat, why would you want it? Well, because we think we don't have it, right? And everything in the world that we make, doesn't last. I mean, we value the things that last a long time and kind of hang in there. We call antiques, right? If they've made it for 100 years. So an antique piece of furniture is like, oh, wow. And it's, been really well preserved. So it gives it a lot of value, and we pay a lot of money for those, precisely because the things that we make don't last. I mean, and that's a form of lack. So only what God creates as eternal is perfect, in the sense that there is there's nothing missing in it. Okay, number 4. It is in fact the essential difference between them. So this is a really good way to remember what is creation as God created it, and what is what we make which we often call creative. We call creative. We write a fiction novel and we say, oh, that was very creative. There's a lot of imagination in that. But we're confusing imagination with creation. So imagination is make-believe. It's fantasy. It's very subjective. It's personal. It's individual. And in that sense, it's special because it excludes. And so that's a good way to understand the difference between what true creation is. Even if we can't understand what true creation is, we can understand what is not true creation. And so number 5, lack implies that you would be better off in a state somehow different from the one you are in. Okay, so what is it saying that the state that we are in? What is the state that we are in truth?
Well, in truth, we are whole and complete and have no needs.
Yes, yes, because we are as God created us. Spirit, not a body that's limited and weak and vulnerable, and not an ego that's a separate individual personality, self-image kind of a thing. And so lack would imply that we are not the way that God created us. But that somehow we have lost that. Yeah. Okay, so 6, until the quote unquote separation, which is the meaning of the quote unquote fall, nothing was lacking. So until that idea of separation, or the idea of the fall in Christianity, it has to do with the idea that Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, out of paradise, out of heaven. Okay, so you could look at that as a fall. And I also seem to remember something about, and I'm not sure that this is even in the Bible. I don't know where it came from, but I grew up, hearing that the origin of the devil, of Satan, came because he was an angel in heaven, and then tried to make angels like God made angels, and basically got caught and punished and thrown out of heaven. So this was Lucifer, God's favorite angel, who was cast out of heaven and into hell. And so that was the origin of the devil.
Wow.
Which, yeah, which is a big fall, that's also sometimes referred to as a fall. But the idea is the same. The idea is that somehow we separated from our divinity, from our wholeness, from God as oneness, and lost that, separated from that, and therefore would be lacking of that. So number 7, there was no needs at all before that, because the mind could not conceive of the idea of separation. So something in the mind, and the Course calls it the tiny mad idea, which is the belief in separation, arose, and we took it seriously. It's not so much that it was a threat to anything, but the main thing is that we believed it, because it's not a true idea, it's a false idea. But when we take it seriously and believe it, then we perceive separation. And therefore, we're going to perceive lack and scarcity and needs. So 8 says needs arise only when you deprive yourself. Yeah.
That's an interesting line.
Yes.
Deprive.
Yes. Well, I mean, think about sleep, for example. So if I'm really, really tired and sleepy during the day, it's because I have deprived myself of sleep, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I feel hungry, it's because I have deprived myself of food and I need to eat food as a body. So needs arise. That's why the next here, that's why the number 10 says this in turn depends on your perception of what you are.
Yeah.
Yes. So if we believe we are a body, then we have deprived ourselves of the truth of what we are. Okay,
But
God,
I'm not going to go around not sleeping and not eating.
say that again.
But I'm not going to go around not sleeping and not eating.
Yeah, but we all do that sometimes. If I'm a college student and I have a test tomorrow and I haven't studied, I might pull an all-nighter.
Yeah.
Or if I have a project due, I might put in, extra time at work to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do it. So, but the main thing is here that is the idea that the perception of what we are is going to determine whether we believe we are needy or not, because the body is needy. I mean, how can we say the body is not needy, right? It's limited. It has to sleep. There's no way the body cannot sleep. It has to rest, right? I mean, it was made that way. I don't know of anybody that can go without sleep for more than a few nights and then you start hallucinating. You're literally sleepwalking if you're not sleeping. So, and it says, number 9 says, you act according to the particular order of needs you're established. So for example, when we believe we are a body, we believe we need food to live. We cannot survive without food. So once we believe we're a body, there's going to be certain things that we need. Shelter, food. I mean, we decide what we need. Companionship. My cell phone,
List goes on.
List goes on. What is it that I really, really need to survive? So, and we make those up, we decide, and we also prioritize them, right? And so we act according to that. Okay, so if if even if I prioritize a self-image of myself as being really cool, okay, and if that is really, really important to me, I may forego eating because I have to put on a presentation, in front of the public, and I have to be prepared, and I have to be sure that I feel that I'm going to give a very positive image. So I may not even have time to eat. So I may put that need aside just because I've given priority to looking cool. Okay, or picking out the right outfit that I'm going to wear and to the party or that kind of thing. So that's what it's saying, is that we're going to behave, we're going to act according to the order of needs that we establish, because they're just judgments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So anything else on that paragraph?
No, not
Okay.
me.
Okay. All right. So you want to go next, Sonia?
Sure. Okay. A sense of separation from God is the only lack you really need to correct. This sense of separation would never have arisen if you had not distorted your perception of truth and had thus perceived yourself as lacking. The idea of order of needs arose because, having made this fundamental error, you had already fragmented yourself into levels with different needs. As you integrate, you become one, and your needs become one accordingly. Unified needs lead to unified action because this produces a lack of conflict.
Okay. And anything there? Okay. It's kind of spelling out a little bit of almost the sequence here. A sense of separation from God is the only act like you really need correct. And so this sense of separation would never have arisen if you had not distorted your perception of truth and had thus perceived yourself as lacking. Okay, so a sense of separation from God is what? Well, if I feel lonely, and I can feel lonely even if I'm in a crowd of people, or even if I'm at a gathering with family or with friends. Okay, so it's not like, I think sometimes we think that, oh, I need to be around people to not feel lonely. Okay, well, that's just distraction, so our attention's distracted and we don't feel lonely. But yeah, there we still feel lonely. And because we're identified with an ego that is a belief in separation. And if you're going to believe that you are this separate individual, of course we're going to feel lonely, or we're going to feel I remember when I was in high school that it felt like I was lacking something. It seemed like I couldn't rationally like pinpoint it, because say, well, I have a good family. I do well in school. I la 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 la, So I thought, well, I have everything. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? And then I said, oh, I don't have a boyfriend. So I that must be it. So uh, so I got a boyfriend. And lo and behold, there was still something missing, even with a boyfriend. So that wasn't it. Um, so it's a sense of not being whole and complete. Okay, because of the um, because I am not perceiving truly myself as what I am. And so I am perceiving myself as lacking. And so what it's saying is that I have distorted my perception of the truth of what I am, because I am believing that I am somehow self-sufficient in that, okay, well, I have this, I can give myself, I'm thinking, oh, if I'm missing something, it must be my boyfriend, then I must be thinking that I'm the one giving myself self-sufficiency, my wholeness, because I'm believing that this world is everything, that this is what reality in the world is, and yet there's something missing. So that's what I can't quite reconcile. Um, So, but of course, where is God in all of that? Well, God's out of the picture. I didn't say, oh, well, let's see, I have a family. Let's see, I do well in school. Let's see, all my needs are met. Okay. But I didn't say, oh, I have God. That didn't even cross my mind, you know? Uh, um, so, and I was very religious too. It wasn't like I wasn't brought up, I was brought up Catholic, very Catholic. My mom was very Catholic. So it's just interesting that the thought that, God didn't even come into that. So, um, and so number 3 is that the idea of order of needs arose because having made the fundamental error, and the fundamental error is that I am separate from God. That's the fundamental error. Um, so having made that fundamental error, then I have already fragmented myself into levels with different needs. So I can say, well, my body has these needs: food, shelter, rest, etc. Okay, but emotionally as a person, I have needs. So, I probably should get a boyfriend to feel emotionally close to someone, or, let's see, I have maybe, I might think, well, I have spiritual needs. Well, I should maybe join a spiritual group, so once I break up myself into body, personality, spirit, into different levels, I might even break the self up into, there's the private self and then there's the public self. So the public image self has a need for nice clothes, looking good. And, the private self, well, the private self might need a little stash of chocolate here and there, you know, um, or whatever other little addictions we have, those kind of things. So once I've fragmented myself into all these different things, or, I might make myself into the activity that I am doing. So if I'm a student, then I have needs as a student, or if I'm maybe I'm a single mother, and I have needs as a single mother, or maybe I have maybe I'm a let's see, maybe I'm, I have a job that's very, very stressful, and I need, to have a drink after I come home, to relax. So um, so that's what we've done, is we've split ourselves into all these different parts that seem to be ourself, and then each of those have different needs, um, because we made the first fundamental error that said we could be separate from God, which is wholeness and completion and has no needs, is everything. So the process now is to go and integrate ourselves to become one again, because and therefore all those needs become just one, which is the need, which is the need to recognize we're not separate from God. That's the only real need that we have to correct, because that's the original error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, you just explaining all of that, I just keep thinking like how tiring it is to try to keep up with all these like identities that we just split ourselves into, that we have to like fulfill each role. Okay, this one needs this one. It's almost like you're conducting a whole stage play and you're trying to like manage and juggle all of these different needs for each of the actors. but you're the only actor that's there.
Yeah.
That's a
So
really good point,
it's
really
just,
good analogy. Yeah.
yeah, it's just so tiring. And I totally get it. Like it's so tiring to try to have all these different needs only because I judge that I need them. That's it.
Yes, and there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of fear if we don't. That's why there's a lot of pressure to meet those needs
Mm,
because we connect them to survival in some way.
yeah, like
Yeah.
socially too. Oh, what were you gonna say, Connie?
Oh, you go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh no, I just was saying just socially too. Like in whether you're in a group, at least for me, it felt like I need to, well, I still need to like fit in socially. So that's a whole image, that's a whole identity that I'm
Yeah.
making needy. But that's all I was gonna say.
Mhm. Well, what about desires? Like, yeah, desires. Like, okay, I love to get outside and walk and be in nature. And do I need that? I feel I do need it.
Oh, yes. So so
Um,
that's what you want to look at is
hmm,
why is it a need? Because you have to go into that to connect to this idea, the sense of separation from God, to be able to release that.
it's just not enough. God
What?
is not enough.
Well, God in the sense that we
Mm,
have conceived of God,
I
because by
know.
definition, God is everything. So how can God not be enough?
I know. That's what we're saying. And I need my companion Chris to go through this crazy journey. This, I want that. It's yeah, yeah. I'm getting off track of what the course is saying, but yeah,
Yeah, but
because I feel God isn't enough. Yep, there's the answer.
okay. And when you say that God isn't enough, what is God?
God is, I guess something I cannot completely grasp and feel uh, safe and at peace with. It's just so ethereal and just so, yeah.
Okay,
It's like
so
I need more.
yes, so you're trying to conceptualize God. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. Yes. And, yeah, I go in and out with that.
Yes. So you're trying to reduce God. You're trying to bring God into the
Right.
illusion so that you can conceive of God as something that can fit into our ego mind as a concept. Okay.
Yeah.
because then we think we will know what God is. Otherwise, the ego conceptual mind is afraid of what it cannot conceive of, it cannot grasp of, because it perceives it as not itself, as different from itself.
Right.
Yeah. And so then there's fear there. There's fear of the unknown. We will conceive of God because we can't conceive of God as what we cannot conceive of, which is the unknown.
Yes.
And once we go into what the mind cannot conceive of, there's an empty blank space there. And the imagination just goes right into it to fill it in.
Mhm.
And then it's just imagining what God could be, would be,
Mhm.
um, which is going to be fearful because
Yeah.
it's all just making
More
things up,
illusion.
more illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how, sometimes I can be so certain, and then other times the little doubt monster takes over.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, just, being attached to these things here. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We're definitely attached to these things here, and that includes the body, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
As much as we complain about it, we're very attached to it. Yeah.
So unified needs, what is that?
Unified needs lead to unified action because this produces a lack of conflict. So it's because of the sentence before, as you integrate, you become one.
Mhm.
Okay, and your needs become one accordingly. So once we begin to recognize that all these different roles, positions, images that we think we are not really what we are. Once we start letting those go, okay, there's an integration that begins to happen, because the you could say that the sense of self is less fragmented.
Mhm.
And so the
Yeah.
less fragmentation, the more integration, the fewer the needs there are. And so we're not pulled all these different directions by all these different needs. And once we are, able to let go of all these made up ideas of what we are, then we're not going to have needs other than the one need right here, where it's a sense of separation from God is the only lack you really need
Mhm.
correct. So we get to the root, of all the fragmentation. And this is where we find peace, because there will be no conflict there. And because there are unified needs, we're not getting pulled in different directions, so that our actions will also be consistent. We're not going to be erratic. We're not going to be, behaviorally speaking, there's going to be consistency, so that a lot of times a personality can be very erratic, and people have a hard time trusting people whose personalities swing, one way today, and next time you meet them, completely different. Ups and downs, really nice today and then really angry tomorrow, that kind of thing. Um, so
Well, I think what Sonia said was so great. I'm just how exhausting it is to just doing all these things we think we should be doing,
Mhm.
and how much more peace we will have to unify. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, because all those shoulds are really coming from those ideas that we have accepted as what we are. So if I believe I'm a parent and I want to be a good parent, then there's all these shoulds that I have to check off to be a good parent. And those are going to be needs.
Well, if I'm going to matter, I need to do something.
Of
That's
course.
huge. Yes. Yes.
Yes, you need to change. You need to you need to work at changing the world somehow if you want to matter.
Ooh.
Mhm. That's a lot of stress. That's a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Are we ready for number 3?
Mhm.
Paragraph 3?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
all right. The idea of orders of need, which follows from the original error that one can be separate from God, requires correction at its own level before the error of perceiving levels at all can be corrected. You cannot behave effectively while you function on different levels. However, while you do, correction must be introduced vertically from the bottom up. This is because you think you live in space where concepts such as up and down are meaningful. Ultimately, space is as meaningless as time. Both are merely beliefs.
Okay. So what it's saying is that because we have fragmented the self into all these different pieces, we have to begin from the bottom up before we can actually release the idea of levels. So let's see. Okay, in other words, the original idea, which okay, the idea of order of need, which follows from the original error, then one can be separate from God, requires correction at its own level. Okay, before the error of perceiving levels at all can be corrected. So you cannot, okay.
It
So,
sounds like going backwards.
so correction must be introduced vertically from bottom up. So let's see. Okay, the idea of order of need follows from the original error that one can be separate from God. Okay, because we are going to fragment ourselves into smaller and smaller pieces. And those pieces require correction at their own level before we can even begin to correct the error of perceiving levels at all. So, so the fragmentation becomes so specific that we have to work with the specific perception of differences. So in other words, I may be identified with being a body, or I say I have a self-image, and say that I believe that smoking is cool. Okay, and so I have an addiction to smoking. Okay, but the self-image of me being cool is a very strong need that I have. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to let go of smoking, the behavior, very easily, because that image demands that I smoke to look cool. So if I try to and don't get me wrong, a lot of people are able to quit, and they seem to do it by, chewing the nicotine gum or that kind of thing. Okay, but but if I really, really, really want to let go of the behavior, um, I need to recognize that that specific behavior, I need to trace it back to the original problem of separation. Where am I feeling that I am separate from God? And where am I not recognizing that I am created perfectly? Well, if I have a need for wanting to be cool, then I must believe that I am lacking in some way. And if I can go, and if I can sit with that and recognize, okay, why would I believe that I am lacking and feel like this need to be cool? Okay. If I can go back and recognize, oh yes, well this, I remember back in school, and I didn't have a very easy time making friends, and the only friends that I kind of felt included with were friends that were smoking. So I started smoking. And so, so if I can go back and recognize where I was feeling separate, just like I was saying in high school, I was feeling like I was missing something. So if I go back and I recognize, oh, well, no, I was wrong about that. That had nothing to do with me not having a boyfriend. Okay. And if the person recognizes, oh, okay, I trying to be cool is a way for me to um, hold on to the belief that I'm lacking in some way, because the more I try to be cool, the more I keep believing that I'm missing something. Okay. And the more I see my error and I give that to the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is helping me to see that, I'm going to be able to let go of that habit, because I'm going to be able to let go of my need for wanting to be cool, because I'm going to recognize that that's not um, that only reinforces the belief that I am separate from God, and that I'm not as God created me.
Mhm.
So what it means is that we have to take each of these fragmented parts and we have to look at them and release each one of them until we're in a position uh, to realize that there's a pattern there, that what we're doing is we're separating these identities into different levels. So I may be playing the role of, being very helpful and being very effective and being kind of on top of everything, very confident at my job. But then, at home, maybe maybe I'm in a relationship that's really abusive and I'm playing a very submissive role. And I'm not going to be able to see those different levels until I heal. I start with one and heal that, to be able to see that um, that none of these are really my true self.
Yeah.
So it's almost because remember that the course is abstract. The text is very abstract, but the lessons are very specific. So that's why we have to do the lessons. Just reading the text and understanding the ideas is not going to produce healing in the mind, because we have to be able to put the ideas into practice and be able to see where our behavior is showing that we are holding on to the belief in separation, so that we can let that go and let that heal. So we always have to start with from the bottom up. Correction must be introduced vertically from the bottom up, and that's why the course emphasizes the practice of forgiveness. And it's in every day, every moment that we believe we live in space and time, because that's what we believe. So if we believe we're in space and time, then that's where we're going to have to start practicing forgiveness, to correct the misperception of what we are and let go of the perception of differences and roles and different identities and that kind of thing, the separation.
Mhm.
Yeah. So number 4 says, this is because you think you live in space where concepts such as up and down are meaningful. Ultimately, space is as meaningless as time. Both are merely beliefs. But we can't get to the beliefs. We can't get to releasing the beliefs until we start with the specifics. I'm going to use an analogy that I learned from EFT, and that is, if you have a belief and you think of it as a tabletop, it's got legs that's holding that tabletop up. So you're going to have to start with those specific events where we held a grievance instead of forgiveness, and take that leg down, and then go to the next event and forgive that, and take that table leg down, so that the whole table, who knows, maybe it has 10 legs, but maybe you only have to work and release and forgive 4 or 5 of them, and then the whole tabletop collapses. So the whole belief is released.
Mhm.
So that's what we have to do with a belief in space and time. I mean, my God, space and time, you know, I mean, if we let go of those beliefs, what are we left with? Right? So, I mean, there's a lot of underlying legs holding up that tabletop. But ultimately, space and time is the belief in separation from God, because it means that we are not in heaven. We're not in eternity, and therefore we are separate from our source.
Mhm.
What is the quickest way for you to feel connected to source?
So for me, every time that I release something, that I clear something, that I let go, and I can start with a very specific thing, it always takes me back to truth, which is my oneness with God.
Mhm.
Because the insight is always there as the false ideas get unraveled.
Mhm.
It's a little bit like, it's a little bit like cleaning a dirty wooden floor, you know, one layer at a time, and then you get to the wood floor and it's beautiful. And that's what we are. We're beautiful, we're innocent, we're holy, we're love as God created us. And we get a little glimpse of that every time we do the work of cleaning all the gunk that's gotten, you know, stuck on top of it. But we kind of have to be willing to do the inner work, which is clearing out all of the judgments and the false beliefs, and you know, all the darkness there,
Mhm.
to get connected to the light it's right there. It's just we're covering it up, and we're not seeing it because we're covering it up. And the more we practice it, and the more this repeats, there's no doubt that that's the truth. And
Mhm.
then we begin operating from that level.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so number 4, the real purpose of this world is to use it to correct your unbelief.
Mm.
um, you can never control the effects of fear yourself, because you made fear and you believe in what you made. In attitude, then, though not in content, you resemble your creator, who has perfect faith in his creations because he created them. Belief produces the acceptance of existence. That is why you can believe what no one else thinks is true. It's true for you because it was made by you. Okay. So this paragraph is talking about the power of belief. And so the real purpose of this world is for the healing of our mind. Any other purpose is not going to heal our mind. So to heal our mind, we have to correct our unbelief, which is that we don't believe that the separation never happened. We believe that the separation happened. So it's upside down. Because everything that our senses, our perception tells us is that there is separation. So, you know, it's for a lot of us, seeing is believing, and we're waiting around for our eyes to show us that there's no separation in order to believe that there's no separation. Well, that's not going to happen, because what we see is a projection of what we believe. So we have to change the belief first in order to see it reflected in the world. Yeah, and we made up fear. God did not make up fear, we made it up. And because we made it up, we believe it. Okay, and because we believe it, it seems to have real effects. But because we don't own it, we feel helpless, as if we don't have control of it. Yeah. So believing in what we made gives it power over us. And so, at least in attitude, but not in content, we resemble our Creator, who has perfect faith in us, his creations, because he created us. And so when we give belief to something like fear or, you know, anything else, it produces the acceptance of existence. We automatically believe that it has existence. And that's why, you know, the imagination is so powerful. And we think about, you know, mental illness and stuff, or schizophrenia, or and it doesn't even have to be that severe, but there's a lot of times where we believe something and we really think it's true, because to the point where we doubt, you know, the facts. We'd rather believe what we think we saw in our own mind. And it didn't even happen. We just imagined it. So we give belief to our own imaginings. You know, a little bit like children. We haven't quite, I don't think, completely we haven't been able, we're not able to discern reality from our imaginings, you know, the facts from what we imagined. Fantasy tends to be something that we engage in that can be very, what's the word? Entertaining. I mean, the whole entertainment industry is based on fantasy, right? So, it's fun for the most part, even fear for the most part, you know, the thrill of the amusement parks. There's a lot of adrenaline that gets pumped. Scary movies, action movies, all of those are activating the testosterone, the adrenaline, the dopamine, all of those. Okay, so yeah, so that is why you can believe what no one else thinks is true. But it is true for you because it was made by you. So, we can believe we can believe in the Loch Ness monster if we want. We can believe anything we want. And it's going to be true for us because we made it up, and we become very loyal to what we make. I remember that was one of the things I learned in college. It's like, well, if you let someone else come up with the idea, they're going to be very loyal to it, you know, or at least let them think they came up with the idea. I mean, that's what advertisement is, really, is sort of implanting thoughts that then seem to be your own thoughts, and then you're loyal to them, you follow them. So, yeah. And so that's the power of belief. I mean, that's the placebo effect.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's going to be true for you because it was made for you. So yes, that sugar pill is going to help with whatever symptoms you have because you believe it.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else there?
Nope.
Okay, so I think maybe it's your turn, Sonia.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All aspects of fear are untrue because they do not exist at the creative level and therefore do not exist at all. To whatever extent you are willing to submit your beliefs to this test, to that extent are your perceptions corrected. In sorting out the false from the true, the miracle proceeds along these lines. Perfect love casts out fear. If fear exists, then there is not perfect love. But only perfect love exists. If there is fear, it produces a state that does not exist. Believe this and you will be free. Only God can establish this solution, and this faith is his gift.
Can you scroll down, Eloisa? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the course, I mean, it basically breaks it down between what God made, which is love, and what we made, what God created, sorry, not what God made, but what God created as love and what we made as fear. And what we made as the ego thought system of fear is untrue. So all the thoughts that are about separation are untrue. And they do not exist at the creative level. They do not exist at the level of God, at the mind of God. And therefore, they do not exist at all. But to us who believe them, they do exist. So, to whatever extent you are willing to submit your beliefs to this test, and we're not always willing because we protect what we make, a lot like a bear and a cub. They're her cubs. And so to the extent that we are willing to not protect our beliefs, to that extent, our perceptions are corrected. And the miracle is really helpful because it sorts out the false ideas from the true ideas. And it makes it very clear in our mind because it releases all of the false ones. So it proceeds along these lines. Okay, so perfect love casts out fear. That's like saying that light undoes darkness. So if fear exists, then there is not perfect love. Okay, now this is this can be applied to so many things, because when you think about the fear of God, okay, or you think about fear of the unknown, okay, then we say, okay, well, if I'm afraid of God, I'm afraid of the unknown, then there is not perfect love there. Okay, so I'm believing that that God is not perfect love. Okay, and so I am equating the love of God with worldly love, which is not perfect. And in fact, because it's not perfect, it can be very fearful. Okay, but only perfect love exists, you see, and therefore worldly love that is not perfect does not exist. It's not love. It's really specialness. We confuse it with specialness, or we confuse it even with attack. We can confuse love with attack because we confuse it with protection. So, but if there's fear, and you can look at that. So if I look at protection and it's coming from fear, it's not perfect love. And it's producing a state that does not exist. So it's producing illusion. Illusion is a state that does not exist. So it's an illusory type of love that's not going to last, because illusions don't last. And so believe this and you will be free. And so to be free is to be free from illusions. Because the mind now is very confused about what exists and what doesn't exist.
It can be disorienting.
Yes, very disorienting. And confusion is really can also be very embarrassing. Can be very you can feel ashamed, disoriented, out of sorts. It doesn't feel good, that's for sure. And so let's see. So the miracle is the way that God establishes what is true is only true in our mind. Because what we've done is we've made what is false true. And that's why we're confused. And that's why we're fearful, because we're believing things that are not true. Like children believing in scary monsters under the bed. That's really scary. And yeah, they believe that it's there. That's why they're so scared. They've made it as if it really exists there. And then if we identify with the fear, we're really identifying with a state that does not exist. And the Course mentions that, how we make ourselves unreal when we do that. Which is sort of like erasing our consciousness of ourselves from our consciousness. a little contradiction there. That's not true. So that's error. That's basically the ego thought system. It's an error because it's a contradiction that's not true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's see. So that's section 4, the illusion of needs. And then the next section, the distortion of miracle impulses. Should we try to do that? Or should we stop here?
It's up to you guys. I might actually stop here. I'm getting, yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think, honey? Do you want to
Well,
get
if you're going to stop, Sonia, well, we can pick up later. You
Oh,
know.
it's okay. It's either way. I can just log off and you guys can continue.
I'm going to stop the recording now and then we'll pick up on the next section. Okay.
Okay.